My pleasure to welcome Jesse Hart to the stage here. He's going to talk about cultivating the garden of your mind. And before you actually get started, let me run back to the back and start recording.
Cool, yeah.
So I'll give you the thumbs up when I'm ready.
Excellent.
Here's your clicker.
Thanks.
Hey everyone. I'm looking forward to this. All right, we good? So I'd like to start off with something that I found when I searched Cultivating the Garden of Your Mind. And I had seen this before a couple years ago, and I hope that it tickles your inner child just as it did mine. Sounds a little garbled.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why.
Not doing it justice. That's okay.
Actually, unplug the speaker wire there. Let's play it off of that and see if it'll play through the speaker or not.
It's okay. We'll figure that out.
I like it.
Yeah. All right.
Just do it. Said the girl that worked at Nike once. Please.
Yes, of course.
Hey neighbor, welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Well, maybe if I press this button. This is a cassette player with a little cassette in here, and there's nothing written on it, so we'll just have to play it to see what it is. Do you ever imagine things? Are they scary things? Do you ever imagine things? Things you'd like to have? Did you ever see a cat's eyes in the dark and wonder what they were? Did you ever pretend about things like that? Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow. Imagine every person that you see is somewhat different from every other person in the world. Some can do some things, some can do others. Did you ever think of the many things you've learned to do? Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow. Did you feel like going like that? Let's give the fish some food. Mr. McFeely, I didn't order any whistle. That's what they call a very sly whistle. Did you feel like going like that? There are so many things to learn about in this world.
Yeah, bravo, Mr. Rogers, and whoever
Thanks.
remixed him.
He's from our childhood too.
Yeah. Who watched Mr. Rogers growing up? Just curious. Okay.
My kids did.
Kids did, but not you.
And also,
Yeah, I'm just curious about how much he spanned, you know.
Too old.
Okay, cool. All right. We're going to go about how now. Come on now. Next. There we go. For my speech, I'm going to tell you about how to cultivate the garden of the mind, and thus our reality. It's completely relative to cultivating a garden in real life, just a little bit different because the garden of your mind is much, much more expansive, and it's not physical, as in you can't see it as solid as you can see an actual garden. This is the formula that we ultimately use for our lives. It's one of my personal principles that I hold true to my practice called empathinity. It is sow a thought and you reap an act. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. In the beginning, you start with simply the energy to get up and have the capacity to realize that there is space in which you can move about. Call it a field or call it your conscious mind. Once you get through your childhood and teenage years, you're left with some useful tools and usable soil, depending on your circumstances, and for most of us, if not all of us, are given some shit. And I mean to you, this is the curse word, because these are in fact the curses that we experience. These are when someone dear to you died. These are when you were homeless, raped, beaten, insulted, belittled, and in all manner of when someone or something ate you up and shit you out. Essentially, this is your baggage. Now what does the physical shit, or now moving into a more blessed term, excrement, become? One way or another, it will inevitably break down into manure or dust, depending on where it ends up. If there's nothing else around, it will dry up and eventually blow away. If it's added to other compost and dirt, it can and will become dark, fertile soil with the proper consistent movement. So that is what you do with your curses, your limitations, your shit. You move it around. You take the good stuff you already have and you mix it all together. At first, this is really unpleasant work. You may need an experienced gardener of the mind, a counselor, a psychiatrist, or perhaps just a person you admire and trust, to make sure you aren't adding too much shit in at once. But just like any skill, with practice you get good at turning your shit into fertile soil, at turning your curses into blessings. Other people may come around and want to give you some of their shit, which leaves you two options. Don't take it and walk away, or take their shit and make something out of it. I suggest you practice both. At a certain point, people won't give you shit because it will freak them out how readily you are to receive it. Once you've mastered this, you are set for life. But now there are more tasks at hand, namely deciding what you do and do not want to grow. Because anything will grow in fertile soil, seeds you plant or weeds that plant themselves. Let's start with the harder, less enjoyable job first, pulling weeds. Weeds are sometimes hard to identify, especially when they're in your mind and you can't see them physically. Consider that every thought that you have is a seed, most of which you are practically unaware of. I'm understanding that we have around 40,000 thoughts a day. So whether you decide what seeds you want or not, 40,000 of them are going into the soul of your mind each and every day. A weed is any thought that is unserving to yourself and or others. Some examples would be, I am not good enough. I can't do it. I'm ugly. Or perhaps, he hates me. They'll never come to my show. Or they, he, she, it, I, is/am wrong. That's a big one. And any amount of things that you do not want to be true. These things may be current truths in your reality. Ask yourself, are they serving your reality? If no, it's time to pull those weeds lest they take over your entire garden. Sometimes these weeds may be helping in a way you do not yet understand, or perhaps served in some way in the past. Some weeds have been growing a long time. We might call these guys the demons we have. They are invasive, kill other useful plants, and their deep roots suck nutrients out of your soil. When you find these guys, it can be a real pain to pull them out. I remember when I pulled the weed of thinking I needed to consciously fix the damaged women in my life. That one went deep from my brain into my perineum. And I remember my first time actually experiencing this, and I could feel an energy up my spine as I acted it out because it felt so real, of actually pulling this weed, feeling the cold energy pull up my spine and then out. Once you do this, you feel a huge sense of relief as your entire conscious perception changes because you don't have that weed inside of you anymore. We're always greatly relieved when we get these guys out of our garden. Eventually you pull enough weeds out that you have a usable plot of land and now start planting the seeds you want to grow. Some examples of these seeds include what you can do or be in your life and saying things like, I can do it. I am beautiful. I am the best. People like me. I am worthy. And ever more detailed, 30 people show up to Unity Grants Pass every Sunday. Even if they are not true in your reality currently. Just as you plant a plum seed, you do not have plums. In time, with further consistent maintenance, we will have plums and many more plum seeds. Once soil is made, weeds are pulled and seeds are planted. What is left is maintenance, or I like to call a little love and light every day. In the garden, the seeds and sprouts need air, water, light, and nutrients. Air is air. You need to breathe more for your thought seeds and sprouts to breathe. Water is also water, and hopefully blessed water that you give thanks to and tell it, I love you. You are, after all, mostly water. Nutrients are good food, especially foods that are good for your nervous system. And finally, light. Light is your spirit, your passion and your compassion for your own life. Naturally, this light will help grow anything, so it doesn't matter to it if it's positive or negative, serving or not. The Spirit loves it all, and loves it so much it will dry up and kill anything if not tended to consistently, including your dreams. Once all that's done, you must remember to rest and allow nature to take over. Once you have done your part, you must trust and allow the little creations to do what they desire to do. This process of cultivating the mind is at first incredibly arduous. It gets easier the more you practice. So commit or eat shit. Seasons of the mindscape relate to astrology, all the way out into the universe where all of this information I've just told you becomes excrement again in the grandest scheme that is ultimately what we call the boundless imagination. Understanding thoughts, what thought seeds to plant when, what nutrients they like, etc. But that's for another lecture entirely. First, commit to and master the basics of cultivation of the mind garden, and you will lead a healthy and wholesome human life. I'd like to open it up now, since that was the culmination of my speech. Pretty quick and to the point. I think we all know this to some degree, but I thought we'd go into a little bit more specifics if anyone has something more particular that's weighing in the garden of their mind. Yes?
I've got one. I came in a little late. I had something happen this week. Two of my kids were in a 4-car pileup, almost died. Came very close, within inches of death. And I feel like my mind has been hit by 3 tons of steel on each side. I can't even think. I mean, I'm drawing like this blank. You know, it's like, have you ever been there where you just, there's no thoughts? I mean, I'm used to thinking, and now there's nothing. And, I'm drawing just this blank.
So, your question?
What do you do when it's like, you show these pictures of the plants? I mean, I'm looking at waste, empty air. I'm kind of lost when it comes to where my mind is.
Sure, I understand. And that's okay. I would encourage you to put into your mind, not all who wander are lost. When you go through those really impactful moments that cause you pain, I noticed from my studies that what pain is useful for is to freeze yourself in the moment. And recognize how many things you are blessed with. And also recognize the things that you're not blessed with. The things that you are blessed with, leave them be and just be grateful. Just hold those things in thanks. The things that you're not blessed with, just like I said, you missed the first part, but you need to move those unblessed things. Either move them out of your way or into some other way. Keep them moving, because that's going to help process them into the usable material later on. Not necessarily judging them or keep repeating to yourself, this is a curse, this is a curse, this is a curse, but rather, what am I going to do about this curse? Where am I going to move it now? You don't necessarily have to decide on the right way to move it, just move it. For some people, it's too excruciating. We have to move it into the recesses of our minds, but at a certain point, they do come to the forefront to be dealt with at some point. So I always say, do it as soon as you feel you desire to do it. Don't do it when you don't feel, but it sounds like you're being blessed with an opportunity in disguise.
Did you talk about burying it earlier?
I talked about when we start off with shit, with a curse word, and we need to move that into becoming manure by mixing it with the tools that you have available to you and the good stuff, or the good soil, or the good dirt that you have available to you. Once you mix them together, and not moving them too much nor too little, because if you've ever made compost before, you recognize that if I move it too quickly, I don't give it time to ferment and to burn. If I don't move it quickly enough, it rots. So finding that time, and it's a sixth sense. So it's most easily found, though, that sixth sense, if you haven't practiced it, when you desire to do it. When you're,
It doesn't come natural, does it? I mean,
it's,
zombie.
yeah, it's a practice. It does come naturally, but depending on what you've been through in your life, it could be something that you've messed up on multiple times in the past. So you have a neural association to it being a failure or being a curse, and then it's no fun to do it, so you never desired to do it. But nonetheless, you have to recognize at a certain point, you must at some point, else it will tear your life apart and you will die.
Like you said it earlier, Jess, the first thing, the Waldo Emerson quote was that it gets easier the more you practice it.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that quote again. Read that quote again.
Fake it till you make it. Is another one from a hair salon.
Sow a thought and you reap an act. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. So right now, all of us are in what we were destined to become by the thoughts, actions, habits in which we have participated in, agreed to participate in many, many times until those habits made such apparent patterns that became our character. These are the characters that we are today. But also still, we are infinitely, our potential is still as infinite as we were as when we were 0 years old, when we were just babies. And that's hard to see because through the years and the layers of stuff that's piled up, good stuff and bad stuff, it's hard, and that's what we experience as an adult, is simply layer upon layer overlapping that infinite child or that infinite potential. You have to dig into it deep, deep down, maybe all the way down to your core-most layer to really, truly get the impact of recognizing, oh my God, I'm still one with God, I'm still infinite, and I can still do whatever I want. Yes?
So a girl that tried to spread this message from Portland, keep Portland beautiful, how do you blend in here?
Blend in
In Grants Pass.
Are you from Portland?
I for 23 years, unfortunately, but I loved it.
Portland's another world. It's gonna take you a while.
I'm from Alaska and the Bay Area and Portland.
I just
And
moved here 5 years ago.
Nice.
To Williams, and I'm still adjusting. I still feel like a fish out of water.
We're talking mom now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. It was the question that he wants to answer.
Yeah. No, I appreciate. I appreciate that everyone wants to participate, and soon enough we're gonna create this into
Yeah,
a circular session. We'll have this be a fully engaging process. But so, first of all, I mean, she helped to answer that question, recognizing we all have to hold in mind what it is we want it to be for ourselves individually, because you're ultimately, Grants Pass doesn't exist. What exists is here and now.
It's the promised land.
Our projection of Grants Pass is what it is what we, our projection of Grants Pass as it pertains to our individual selves is what Grants Pass is. So our experience of Grants Pass combined with our experience of ourselves, that is what you carry with you, the vibration or the thought energy that you carry with you as you're moving around. So really, the interesting thing about Grants Pass, because for me, it was horrible growing up. I was so not proud of this place because of the lack of diversity, because of the closed-mindedness, and it didn't feel spirited at all. It felt horrible, stagnant. But I went through a ton of different things. Going up to Eugene for college, Portland to live and work, back down to Eugene, 22 countries around the world, and finally something pulled me back here because I wanted to change, and also I could not help but admit where I grew up blessed me, and I wanted to give back to that. One moment, I'm almost there.
Thanks.
To give back to that. With my change of mindset, I came back and recognized that my mindset over Grants Pass hadn't changed, and thus Grants Pass had changed too. Much more diversity, much more places that I didn't even weren't aware about, including this space here and other spaces, because I move around a lot, so I got to see a lot. Many things had changed because I had changed many things too. Now it's the process of continuing to create more momentum in that change, and that has to do now with, I can't help but admit, my external self, my environment. All of you, we build the reality together. That's why God split itself into an infinite amount of entities to perceive and to experience in an infinite amount of ways. We are all that individually, and we're all that unified. So that's why we're meeting here, to talk about this stuff and to think about holding things in mind. We have all of these things that we want to do with this space and how this space interacts with the community. So now we're all starting to hold these same thoughts in mind. We're all planting the same thought seeds and giving them energies in our own little infinite plot, which are more or less all around each other, close enough in vicinity. So that's how we do it. You do it individually, and then we do it collectively. What else? Yes.
I met Katie at Unity in Westland a while ago. So thank you guys for letting me come finally.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your answer.
My pleasure.
I'm trying to.
You want to stay?
I'm trying to.
I got another comment, Jess.
Yes.
There was the idea of burying our stuff.
You can call it shit.
I can call it shit.
I've said it enough.
We can say stuff too.
We can say whatever. I just like to say, it's like, when we use the word shit, yes, it's a curse word, but it's more,
Not today.
it's the energy that was involved in it. Say, you're shit. That's different than this situation. Shit, you know? It's like, it's...
Let's desensitize it.
Well, it's not desensitizing. It's just understanding that there are many sensitivities to every single word in the English language. It's all a matter of context and how you relate to it differently. If you curse the word that's cursed already, you're just doubling your curse, rather than being like, oh, he means a certain point. Yeah. What, Rob?
We had talked earlier in the week about you can't snatch those weeds up too quick.
Oh, yes. Good. Thank you for bringing that up.
Because, if you snatch it up too quick, you don't get the root,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll just grow right back.
Gently, yeah. The weeds that have been growing with us since sometimes even before birth, from when you're maybe even in the womb, to your ancestors or your DNA, things that they experienced in the past and you are going to now experience relatively in the present that haven't been dealt with, have been growing a long, long time. And because their roots are so deep, you might need help pulling them up. And if you've ever tried to pull up a really intelligent weed that's been growing a long time, as in a really able-bodied weed, when you pull it, the top just snaps off. The roots are still completely there, and what it does as a defense mechanism is it branches up from all of those weeds, and instead of having one big plant, now you have a dozen small plants.
Is that what integrity looks like too? Maybe?
Potentially. I'm more thinking about it as
same idea.
grace.
Yeah, same idea.
Yeah, same idea. Because what you need to do is first recognize, can I do this by myself?
Yeah.
Or would I feel more comfortable doing it with other people? And then once you find it and you recognize this is another word that is used is demon circuit, your connection with your present and past traumas. Because the reason why we don't want to bring them up to the surface is because it rehashes the injury. You experience it again. And no one wants that. So when you do it, you want to make sure that you feel prepared and that you're patient too, because it's not typically like a Band-Aid where we just rip it off and it's over. It's a no. We're going to have to slowly, gently pull this thing out and be very, very sensitive to when you feel those roots start to rip, And that's what's tricky too, is sometimes they do rip and you still have to keep going, or you got to dig around into the soil, get to where you can grab a big hunk of those tap roots and continue the path. And it causes a lot of pressure. If we don't do it intelligently, that pressure increases and becomes pain, and then you're experiencing a trauma over a trauma. And what we want is to go into like deep tissue massage. It doesn't feel good to go back into this situation, but it is good because you're getting into the hard stuff. Eventually, once it's finally all out, which could take from hours to days to months to years, but it's worth it. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. It is a process to take out those really deep roots. Let's do one more and then we'll go into the meditation.
I was talking to Ron yesterday about the culture war that I feel like I'm in, that I think we're all in. The culture war that's kind of engulfing everything and everybody right now. No?
It's all in how you define it, right? It's all in so I've been practicing for quite a while now, and I understand that it's all in how you define it because words are infinitely capable. So I don't think about it as a culture war as I much see it as we are all waking up to the paradox of who and what we are. And in the change of frequency, if you've ever seen any of those frequency experiments where they put like a metal plate over a speaker and they put sand on the speaker, at one frequency it makes a perfect, beautiful pattern. But as it transitions into a new frequency, that pattern becomes complete chaos and then comes back into a different pattern. One might say a more pretty pattern, but it's not prettier, it's just different, it's unique. So what we're experiencing right now, as I can see most people are, is that in-between phase. It seems like war, but really all it is your structure is diving back into the chaos, or rather the infinite potential in which you once were. It's the exact same thing. All the sand molecules are still there. They're just rearranging themselves. And in that process of frequency shift, you listening? In that process of frequency shift, you have to breathe, be patient, because the God mind or the Godhead or the universe or source or spirit, whatever you believe in, has an innate understanding of everything. All that you need to do is keep directing and pretending and keep planting the thought seeds that you want so that you can combine your free will with God's powerful fatism or whatever, like his plan or whatever it is. We work together, but at the same time, if you get to the end all be all, it's almost like, oh geez, I couldn't have planned this any better. Like what my free will was doing was such a small portion. And it's really, as a master taught me, our free will and the stuff that goes on to the mind is really just the stuff that keeps God company. It's like, oh, cute my little puppy, whatever. It's like, yeah, you have a little bit of influence over my life or my plan or my creation, and you ultimately can do what you want, but still, it's very small in comparison. We're really just doing that to enjoy the ride a little bit more ourselves. This gardening, I mean, if you think about it, especially nowadays, you can go to the supermarket and get any type of veggies and fruits that you want. You don't have to keep a garden at all. Everybody's taking care of it for you at this point. Keeping a garden at this point is really so that you can appreciate life more, so you can get high quality stuff more, and you can have a little bit more interaction and entertainment with the capacities of the free will of your life. It's really cosmetic, but upon further introspection, it's more enjoyable to tend to those smaller things than to just put it off on everybody else. But at the end of the day, yeah, you don't have to do any of this stuff. It is pretty completely arbitrary. But still, I like it. I'm noticing big shifts, and I am doing everything that I can, because once you really get good at creating this garden, it's a breeze. It's like anything else. It's like any other skill. Like when you play guitar, is it a pain?
It used to be.
It used to be.
Yeah.
When you were fresh at it, when you didn't know what you were doing, right? But through enough teaching and advice and learning from other guitarists, we learn from other mind cultivators, which we all ultimately are. Our life is our work. At a certain point, especially once you get all those demon roots out, it's a breeze. It's simple. It's so effortless. You can do literally whatever you want. Whatever you want. But you have to get through all those mucky layers, and all you really actually have to do is keep showing up. Keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. That is the work. The rest of it just happens often through other people and through your mind, or through the heart mind, I call it, the connection between your recognition of reality with your source energy, with who you really are.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I thought we would do a little mind garden meditation now. So, meditation this is actually meditation / visioning. I'm recognizing that those two things are different. Whereas meditation is really just the observation of your physical, mental, emotional, just observing what you're experiencing. Visioning is placing what you want to experience in the place of what is. It's really a difference between what's happening now to what would I like to have happen in the future, like professional prayer. Professional meditation. Meditation is just for yourself. Prayer and visioning is for your grander reality, as it pertains to all the people around you, all the way up to the whole of the universe and God and whatever's beyond that. So, sitting in your chairs, I invite you to sit towards the front of your chairs if you can comfortably, as we want the spine to be free. Placing the hands on the lap or the knees, palms face down if you're feeling like you could use a little bit more grounding. If you want to get more in touch with your roots. If you feel like you're growing pretty good right now and you want to continue to get more etheric interest, energy, you bring those palms face up. If you're feeling like me right now, I'm feeling pretty centered, I'm going to put my hands together. Closing the eyes, and first just coming to your natural breath, natural posture, your overall state of feeling right now. The breath and body simply need your mind's acknowledgement, not judgment. Being with yourself for just a few breaths. Bring your mind's awareness to your heart center. See if you can feel your pulse. From this heart center, if you haven't, if the mind keeps straying away, keep bringing it back to the heart. Give you 2 breaths. Big breath in. full breath out, maybe with a sigh. Really let that breath out all the way. Then release your hold and naturally inflate. Manually inflate to your full capacity. And let it go. Heart center awareness. Bring your mind's awareness down to the pulse, to the center of your being. Now I want intuitively for you to place a field in that mind's eye, that heart mind's eye. Now instantly you have an image in your mind. Study it. What does it look like? How does that look to you? What sort of feeling does your garden give you? Begin walking through your garden. Remembering right now we are creating a visioning process. Each one of these plants you see around you all relate to a thought that you've had. And if you look towards the horizon, you realize this garden is massive. It goes on and on all the way to every single horizon, filled with greenery, and perhaps some other colors as well. Does it look healthy? Now we're going to start with the more challenging stuff. I want you now, and since this is the mind, you don't have to walk there. It will come right before you. I want you to go to the space in your garden that needs tending to. Find the worst place in this garden, go to it. Just be there and breathe for a moment. No need to judge it. We all have some work to do. Noticing the state this place is in. Fortunately, unlike in the reality of the physical 3D, in the 5D, we don't necessarily need to use our hands, but instead we use our minds. Use your mind, use your imagination, and do with what you want in this space. It's as if you had 1 million people, microscopic people, helping you out, changing whatever state into whatever state you like. Keep breathing. Let go of the unserving thoughts and energy, noticing that they are only holding you back. Keep erasing those feelings of worthlessness away, helplessness away, disgust away, and simply get to work. It happens as quickly as you allow yourself to commit to it. Already in my mind, I see what was decaying matter, rotten, changing rapidly into usable soil. Keep working on whatever you see and be gentle but persistent. Notice as you do this work, unexpected things begin to happen. Some things good, some things maybe not so good or not what you expected to happen. as we notice that the mind is very, very powerful. It does some of what we want it to do, and mostly it does what it wants to do. This is where faith comes into play. Stand back from that decrepit plot and notice what's changed. Might still be quite the same. This is your intuitive mind coming up. You don't have to put an image in its place. It will happen in and of itself. Just notice what's changed, just with your attention on it. Leave that be for a little while and go to a really beautiful space in your garden, a space that's really well tended to. It makes you feel at peace and enthusiastic or spirited at the same time. Notice the energy, notice the difference. Breathe this energy in. Keep with me, we're almost through here. Being in this energy and see it seep into you as you seep into it, until you recognize you are not yourself walking through the garden, but the garden itself. The whole of the environment, your body in it, and it housing your body. Direct this energy consciously back to that not so wonderful plot. You don't have to be there, but just send the energy there. Now go back there. Back to that old decrepit plot. What has become of it now? Depending on your circumstances as you stand right now, you could see a little bit of change or a lot of it change. Slowly begin coming out of your garden, seeing your spirit dissipate, coming back into your body, feeling yourself sitting here in this chair, in this room. Carrying with you now a little bit of experience of your higher self, or your fifth dimensional self. And when you feel it, open your eyes. Anybody like to share a little bit of that experience? Yes, in the back?
Super peaceful, thank you.
Sure.
I don't even like meditation.
Yes.
Mine's full of animals.
Animals?
Eating the grass.
How does it feel to see them eating the grass?
Well, that's a good question. I raise sheep. At some points I've had hundreds of them. And just recently we moved out like a whole lot of them. And I felt like this weird, I don't know, I felt, like my home was really full and then all gone in one day. And I know maybe it's the shepherdess thing, but if you don't have something to nurture, you go crazy.
Sure. But you always have something to nurture, which, that being yourself, my interpretation of the experience you're having right now is that you're going through a reset moment. You're being given the opportunity to be reborn, which is why you're here. Because this is a space where people are looking for the greater potentials of life. And so your spirit, your energy is naturally attracted to this space because we need people around us when we go through those massive shifts to ground us. When I went through my massive shift, if I didn't have the love around me, I'd be one of those guys who are out there. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we're all a little
I
out there.
agree.
We're definitely all a little out there. It's just a matter of the love of others will help ground you back into your body. Yeah.
Thank you. I was a volunteer for special needs and I needed that too. I did since second grade on.
We're empathic beings, whether we understand it very well or not. And so these meditations, these understandings of ourselves will help us to keep allowing in the energies we want to that serve us, and keep out the ones that we don't. Because it's not our responsibility to tend to anybody else's garden. It's only our responsibility to tend to our own garden. It's natural inclination. And if we keep projecting that selfishness is bad, we're not getting the full scape of selfishness. Yourself is from your heart center all the way into whatever you perceive. That's who you are. The body's just where you are. So tending to yourself is tending to other people. You'll start noticing as you shift yourself, other people shift around you. And it's just a matter of consistency. Keep showing up, keep pulling those weeds, keep making new soil, because you have to replenish it too. It's a never-ending job. But it's good. It's good that we have that, because where we are at, even if it was more perfect than this or less perfect than this is still more enjoyable. Because we get to find ourselves in a place that we get the fruits of our labors. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. It's so easy to go forever and ever. So let's call that good. Thank you all for practicing with me today. And stuff like
I really appreciated that because I remember this song that I wrote that my daughter always told me that she liked.